Hello, welcome to Gea English Channel. Subscribe dong. Ngeri, ngeri, ngeri.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to all you fans of wherever you are around the world. And in this video, I'll be talking about strategy for successful language learning. Right? So this is the strategy language learning part 2, and I suggest you also to watch the strategy language learning part 1 at the previous video. So in this video, I will be talking about the good language learner thinks about what is being learned and incorporate into a developing system. So I do believe this is really highlight the importance of active and post learning, as well as the integration of the new knowledge into structure and evolving framework. And here's the breakdown that I would like to share to you, especially the elements of this statement. And let's start by breaking down about the student thinks or the learners think about what is being learned. So here, a good language learner is not just passively absorbing information, but actively engages with the learning process. And they think critically about the new language concept. They think critically about the grammar rules. They think critically about vocabulary, and also they think critically about cultural aspects they are learning, right? So this thoughtful consideration allows them to understand the material more deeply and also make meaningful connections between different elements of the language, right? So it incorporates into developing system is also part of this statement that a successful language learner doesn't treat each language lesson or learning session in isolation. Instead, they view their language learning journey as an evolving system or structure. So here they organize and integrate the network knowledge and skills they are required into their existing understanding of the language. And I think this system could be mental, like a personal learning map, or a physical, like study notes or language learning software. So here, I think by actively thinking about what they are learning and incorporating into a developing system, language learners or the students can create a coherent and interconnected framework for their language acquisition, right? And I think this approach will foster a more comprehensive understanding of the language and also facilitates the retrieval or application of knowledge when communicating in a target language, and also provide a sense of progression and achievement as learners see how their language skills develop over time within a structural learning system, right? So that is the first. And the second, the good language learner consider possible manifestation of the language. And I think here also test like hypothesis, and this will make subsequent modification accordingly. So I think this statement will emphasize the importance of a scientific and experimental approach to language learning. It means that a proficient language learner engage in a process of exploration, trial, and also engage in error to develop their language skills effectively, right? And I would like to break down this element into more detail. Let's say the first considerations is a possible manifestation of the language. So here, a good language learner actively thinks about how the language can be used in different contexts, including in various social situations, formal, informal settings, written and spoken communication, and also cultural nuances, So here they consider the language from multiple perspectives and to gain comprehensive understanding of its application, right? And test the hypothesis means instead of rely solely on memorization. Here, I think a successful language learner experiment with the language. They put their understanding to the test by actively using the language in conversations, writing exercises, or real life interactions. And I think by applying their knowledge in practical situations, they gain valuable insight into the language's effectiveness and also appropriateness, right? And to make subsequent modification accordingly means based on the result of the experiment and real life language use. I think proficient language learner adapts and refines their language skills. Can they learn from their mistakes, adjust their tests, and also fine tune their approach to improve their language proficiency continually, right? And I do believe by adopting this experiment and adaptive approach, language learners um, can develop deeper understanding of the language nuances and also gain confidence in their abilities and become more proficient speakers, right? And this active and interactive learning process will allow learners to continuously enhance their language skills and effectively communicate in a variety of situations, right? So that's what uh, makes the subsequent modification accordingly. And the other statement about the good language learner rehearses his speech or her speech when preparing for an interchange, right? So here what I mean by this statement is a proficient language learner practices and prepares what they want to say before engaging in conversations, before exchanging with others in the target language. So I think this rehearsal process will help them become more confident and also will help them become more fluent during the actual interaction. And let's break this statement down into two parts. And the first about rehearses the speech. I think before participating in a conversation or interchange, a good language learner takes the time to rehearse and practice what they intend to say. I think this involves going over key phrases, sentences, expressions they plan to use during the conversations. And I think by rehearsing, they can become more familiar with the language they will employ, or which these things could lead to smoother communication, right? So that's what it means, rehearse the speech. And the second is about preparing for an interchange. Now, how to prepare for interchange here, it refers to an exchange of ideas, or exchange the information or the conversations between two or more people, right? So it could be a simple everyday conversations, or business meeting, or interview, or any other communicative situation, right? So the good language learner recognizes the importance of preparation before engaging in such interactions, as it helps them communicate effectively and avoid feeling overwhelmed or uncertain. And I do believe by rehearsing the speech, and the language learner can gain confidence, can reduce anxiety, and be better to equip themselves to express accurately and fluently during a real life conversations. And I also believe that rehearsal allows them to anticipate potential challenges, such as a tricky grammar point or specific vocabulary they might need. And also it could lead to more successful and proactive in interchange in the target language, right? So that's what I mean, the statement about the good language learner rehearse the speech when preparing for an interchange. And the other things that should be paid attention by the language learner is about actively looks for opportunities to communicate. Here, I mean that a proficient language learner actively seeks and create chances to practice and engage in real life communication using the target language. So let's see this statement, how it looks like, and then let's break it down. First, actively looks for opportunities. So what does it mean, actively looks for opportunities? So here, a good language learner doesn't wait passively for opportunities to practice the language to come to their way, but they are proactive in seeking out a situation where they can use the language. And I think this might involve joining language exchange groups, and then attending language meetups, and participating conversations, circles, right? Or maybe seeking opportunities to interact with native speakers or other learners, And the second part is about to communicate. Here, the main goal of actively seeking opportunities to engage in a meaningful communication. That's, I think, the main goal. And language learners here understand that communication is a vital aspect of language learning, as it helps them put their knowledge into practice, refine their language skills, and become more fluent and confident speakers. And I do believe by actively seeking opportunities to communicate, here language learners immerse themselves in authentic language use, exposing themselves to different accents, expressions, and also cultural nuances, right? And this practice contributes significantly to their language development and enables them to navigate real-life situations more effectively. And I think by engaging meaningful conversations, it fosters the learner to a deeper understanding of the language, social and also cultural context. And I think making the learning process richer and also will be more enjoyable, right? So that's what I mean by the learners actively looks for opportunities to communicate. And the next one is about here good language learner also need to try again if necessary in other ways when there has been a language breakdown. So here I mean to emphasize the persistence and also adaptability of a proficient language learner in the face of communication challenge. So let's break it down. The key elements of this statement is say try again. So when a language learner encounters a communication breakdown, such as, for example, like misunderstanding, misinterpretation, or maybe an inability to convey a message effectively, and a good language learner doesn't give up, but they make an effort to try again, attempting to rephrase or clarify their message to ensure better understanding. And the second is, if necessary, in other ways. What do I mean here? Language learner try to learn if necessary in other ways means if the initial approach to communication fails, it means a successful language learner is flexible and resourceful. So they are willing to try alternative methods or communication. So I think this might involve like using gesture, visuals, or maybe simplify language to convey their message more clearly, right? And I think language breakdowns are a natural part of the language learning process because this will be happening, especially when learners are still developing their skills. However, by persistently trying again and being open to different approaches, and then language learners can overcome this challenge and enhance their communication abilities. I think this approach also demonstrates a positive attitude towards learning and a willingness to learn from mistakes, and which are essential qualities for becoming more proficient and language speaker. So that's what I mean by learn again or try again if necessary, using other ways, right? And also, the good language learner is willing to make mistakes, to appear foolish in order to communicate. So here, emphasize the importance of being fearless and open-minded in the language learning. It means uh, proficient language learners is just not afraid of making errors. It's not afraid of making silly things, right? While attempting to communicate in the target language, right? So this element about willing to make mistakes, here language learners understand that mistakes are inevitable part of the learning process. So rather than being discouraged by errors, and a good language learner embrace them as opportunities for growth, and they recognize and making mistakes will help identify areas for improvement, and also learning from errors leads to the deeper understanding of the language, right? And about willing to appear foolish, here language learners may initially feel self-conscious or unsure about their language skill, especially when they are beginners or learning in a new cultural context. However, a successful language learner is willing to push past this feeling and take a risk in communication. So here they will understand that appearing foolish in the short term is a small price to pay for a long-term benefit of the language proficiency, right? So I think by being willing to make mistakes and appear foolish, language learners create a supportive and a positive learning environment for themselves, right? And they become more comfortable, they become more engaging in conversations. They are going to ask more questions and seek clarification. And I think all are essential for language acquisition, right? So I think this mindset of fearlessness and humility fosters a greater language fluency and also builds the confidence needed to become more effective communicator in the target language, right? And the most important thing I think about language learner is always practice, right? So here, good language learner practice means that a proficient language learner dedicates time and also dedicates effort to regularly engage in activities that help them improve their language skills, right? So um, what does it mean practice here is the act of practicing involves like actively working on a language related task and exercises to reinforce and also develop language abilities. And this can include speaking, listening, reading, writing, and even cultural immersion of activities, right? And I think a good language learner understands that language proficiency is not achieved overnight, but through consistent practice over time. So they make language learning is a part of their daily routine and also seek out opportunities to practice regularly, and also by practicing regularly, and language learner reinforce their language knowledge and also improve their fluency and accuracy to expand their vocabulary and also gain confidence in their language abilities. So here, repetition, exposure to a language in various contexts will contribute to the development of a more robust and well-rounded language proficiency, right? And I think the the most important thing here is when you are going to improve your strategy to be successful in language learning. And I think practice, 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 and practice, right? And I think that is the key number one and the most essential key that you need to do if you want to achieve your success in learning languages, right? Okay, super learners, super teachers, and all amazing people, amazing individuals. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for supporting by subscribe, sharing, like, and comment. And I hope this video is useful for you. Thank you for watching, and yeah, in this channel. Bye bye for now.
Subscribe dong. Ngeri ngeri ngeri.